Can queer communities like Wilton Manors be a place where Black LGBTQ plus can thrive?
This is the first march I've seen in the city of Wilton Manors. Do you think that we are closer to getting people to understand that Black lives really do matter?
I really do think that we're getting closer, because this march here and this rally isn't just about Black Lives Matter throughout the United States and the nation. It's about Black Lives Matter here in Wilton Manors for our Black trans and our Black gays as well. So the fact that our community has recognized that shows that Wilton Manors has the courage and the ability to acknowledge what's going on and willing to move forward.
The first thing we have to do is we have to get up every day and decide what are we doing to help better the situation.
Yes, and we all are here for one reason, and that's unity. Absolutely. And thank God that everybody was able to come together today, whether it's out of the love and courage that they have for their friends and their allies, or just for themselves. We're all here to speak up, and we can only be grateful that we have that chance to do so.
People who live in and around Wilton Manors, which is known as the gayest place on earth, like to think that they are the most inclusive and accepting community. However, that is not necessarily the truth. The community is subject to white dominant decision making. The Black LGBTQ plus population of Wilton Manors still has not found its rightful place. Both the community and the Wilton Manors administration can take steps to embrace diversity and promote acceptance. Action has to be taken against the discriminatory language and approach toward the Black LGBTQ plus community. Attacks on the establishments owned by the community must be looked into thoroughly in order to create an environment of justice within Wilton Manors. This will be the right way of celebrating Black History Month. Tonight, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network is hosting a Black community town hall and roundtable to discuss a community's approach to the Black community, especially a community that is so identified as a progressive, as an LGBTQ plus community. And this is really, I think I work in healthcare, so I always think about the infection, how we tackle disease, right? And it's always, you have to get to the root cause of the disease, right? We can't keep giving you Band-Aids. If you have diabetes, you have to lose weight. You can't just take insulin, right? You have to change your diet. You can't just take a pill. And when I think about the larger discussions about race and racism in America, and then I look at a little community like Wilton Manors, and I go, it's a great place to make change. I'm always reminded, because I work in healthcare from the 80s, a lot of these guys I know, we're talking about not healed people, right? I know a lot of people who still can't go home on the holidays, right? They've never been accepted by the family. So you're talking about people that have a lot of stuff going on. This is a process, I think, in Wilton Manors that we should be having this discussion, I think is nothing but healing for everyone involved, including the people that you may feel you're receiving the most discrimination from, right? I think there's a lot of conversations that need to happen up there. And I think through that, we'll find some common ground for everybody when we realize that we really do have a lot more in common, right? There's a lot of things going on up there.
It's true. I think that, not being born and raised here, right? So I always give things like that context. I meet so many people here that are older, that came from other areas, and a lot of the decision making, as you were saying, a lot of the decision making is made from older white men. I mean, that's just a fact. And one of the things that I learned very quickly in life is that just because you identify as queer does not mean that you're automatically not racist or carry racial issues or carry those things with you, because that's a completely different track in your mind. And unfortunately, it feels like a lot of times, especially in the Wilton Manors area, that is an issue, right? That's something that you can see just in the marketing for events. That's something that you can see in the types of events they have. There's nothing that's catering to, there's nothing that's really, Black friendly. It's kind of saying very clearly, like, we don't technically, you can come in, but we're not really going to invite you in.
I'd also say, just to add a little bit of context too, Wilton Manors didn't used to always be so white. It used to also be a very Black and Asian community, and they pushed those people out over time. And now we have the issues we have now with violence and with unconscious racism, they say, which is still racism at the end of the day.
I mean, I don't know anything about Wilton Manors, but I know that back in the 90s, say in New York, when we were fighting against the AIDS epidemic, the conversation went to white and male because we live in America in this white male patriarchal society. And that's who they would listen to. They wouldn't listen to anybody else, right? And so I think Wilton Manors is like this microcosm of the larger problem.
Well, when you think about the question that they asked, can we thrive in that community? And what's the statement they always say when they say, if it's not built by us, it's not for us? However they say that comment, I think about how many Black politicians or commissioners or mayors are there? How many Black businesses are there? How many Black clubs are there? I think that's like zero. I remember a time when, a lot of the Black promoters and things would go to Wilton Manors and they would have Black nights there.
Yep.
It doesn't exist anymore. They've moved out of Wilton Manors. And I guess that's a really good question to ask. Why are they no longer in Wilton Manors? And a lot of people just said that we weren't welcome. So I don't know. When they say, can we thrive in that community?
Well, it's money too, right?
hard.
Think about that. There's money. I mean, I think about some of the drag performers that go and perform at Cloud9, right? They make a lot of money, and there are a lot of people there. And you sit there and watch it, and because I live near Cloud9, I'm like, it's amazing that you can gather all these people out west for this event.
Yes.
And Wilton just sits there crickets, right? And eventually you tell people, I mean, I'm just be really real. Black folks, if you tell them you don't want them, they're not going to keep on coming. Like, they're just not. They're not, I'm not going to go where I'm not welcome. They have done, in just the decade I've lived here, events that used to be common are no longer here. I think about some place like PJ's, right? Anybody who's been here long enough, that's moved from location to location. And when they finally made it to the Drive, and it felt great to have a place on the Drive, everyone else talked about it as if it was a leper colony. Like, they looked at you sideways if you said you were going there, as if like there's something wrong or it's dirty or something. And you're sitting there like, you do realize this is pretty racist what you're saying,
and
right?
I would also say, I mean, as a Wilton Manors resident, I remember talking to one of the commissioners who had asked me, like, do you feel unsafe in Wilton? And I said, I don't feel unsafe because I'm gay. Like, I can walk down the street with my fiance, nobody's bothering us, everybody gets to be gay, there's rainbow flags everywhere. And I said, but I've been pulled over in Wilton Manors by cops for nothing. Like, so it's like, I'm still Black. Like, I cannot erase that just because of Wilton. And when you ask about the commissioners, like, I just did a quick Google search. I don't see that there's ever been a Black commissioner in incorporated Wilton Manors. And right now we are governed by a commission of 5 cis white men, one of which is heterosexual. The rest are not. And it's like, how can you call yourself the most progressive and inclusive if you are not setting up leadership and mentorship and grooming for somebody else to take over once you're gone? And the answer is not when a Black person says to you, like, why are we missing from the table, to be like, well, then you should run. No. That's not what I'm here for. But like, how are we mentoring that? Or how are you intentionally saying, this space, this shop, this park, this whatever is set aside for a Black business owner?
Yeah, there's been one Black commissioner, and he served, I think, 1 term at Wilton Manors. And I also wanted to say, I was the only Black queer person to run to represent the area in the legislature. It took me 2 runs to even win the city. When I came into the city at first, it was like, we never had a Black candidate come here, a Black gay candidate. So the politics, like, talking about the politics.
Right, but you have to remember that those are things that we have to do that. And you can't leave it up to them. And you can't expect them to carve out a space for you. They're not going to do it. They don't even know how to do that, right? I wouldn't know how to do that if somebody Asian came to me and said, I just looked at your board and there's no Asians on your, you need to carve out a, I'd say, no, you carve out the space and I will implement it. But I don't know because I'm not you, right?
Well, and I would disagree with that, because if you were on the board and someone comes to you and says, this is all men, there are no women, like, how do we address that? you being a board member has the power to sit and have that conversation and then
Right.
create something, right? Like you have the power
We
to.
did it
So even if
created
you
a
don't,
space for a woman
even if you,
to say create women's things, right? I'm not gonna try to do that
Of
because
course,
I'm not a woman.
of course,
So we
but-
made a space for a woman. So
But what I'm saying is, with all of the city property that exists in Wilton Manors, whether it's parks, whether it's, buildings, whether it's whatever, all these empty spots that are just sitting in Wilton Manors, why can't a city commission say, in the same way y'all can lease land to whoever you want for $1 a year, that like, this is our incubator for Black businesses in Wilton. Like you have the power to do, no one is asking the white commission to put on Black events. No one's asking them to do that. And we're just saying like, step out the side, give us the space because we know that you could do it for yourselves and what you want. So give us the space for us to be able to do
But
the
have
thing.
they said they wouldn't? Has somebody come to them with a plan and said, I want that space and I want it for this?
Yes.
And that's what I want.
Yes, there has been people that have tried to get buildings there
Okay.
that they've been turned down.
Okay. See, now
So
that's an issue.
they turned down. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily agree with what you said before. I do believe that people have to be intentional and
Yeah.
have to say,
Right.
okay, we want Black people to come here. Let's have a Black office here, this, that, and the other. I know there's several organizations that I became a part of that there was never a trans person there until they were like, you know what, let's be intentional. Let's make a space for a trans woman. And in
Right.
came me, and then I brought people.
Right.
So sometimes you have to be intentional
Right.
about that,
Right.
or it's not going
Right.
to,
It's all the
or it's
time
not
you
going to
have
happen.
to
And not
be-
all the time.
You have to
do
move
it.
with
Yeah.
intention,
And
right?
yes,
Like,
do.
Right.
If you're going to court, right? Because that's the thing. If you're going to, even from a business perspective, if you're going to court businesses and you're going to expect businesses and you're going to claim diversity and you're going to claim to be progressive is not 5 white people, right?
Right.
And once again, like I said, I started this, right? Queer and race are not the same thing.
Right.
They're not the same thing.
And how long, going back to the question, can we thrive? The question is, how long are we going to continue to let them not give us a place at a table and continue to bring them money?
That's right.
Right.
Continue to go to their
Right.
club.
Well,
continue
that's-
to go to
now
their
that's the
business.
point.
Continue to use
That's
their
the-
organization.
That is an absolute.
Can't even
That
get
is
a-
an
That's
absolute
my
Can't even
point.
get the lesbian woman to become the mayor. I'm just
Right.
Can we have a
And I think
lesbian
that-
woman do anything?
I think that that's a very good question that I even ask myself on a regular basis as a resident of Wilton Manors, because I can't move, right? It's too expensive everywhere. But it's like, how often do we put the energy into being, on the one hand, saying, I live here, so I deserve to have things here that are for me, even if I have to build it for my people. So it's like, even in doing, for example, Pride Fest, that was 1,000 predominantly Black and brown people that came to the drive. That also some of the feedback that we got was those folks were like, we didn't even know this existed in Wilton. Like, we don't come to Wilton. That's
right.
We took a risk on coming here for this thing today, and this was great. But then there's nothing else. Like, that's not a regular thing. But then the flip side of that is, the commissioners and everybody gets to say, like, look what we did as a city.
Click, click.
When you, right. You get your pictures, you come, you do your thing. They get to put it on the website and say, we're not racist because look at us right here. So it's like, how do we move forward, and how do we do something that allows us the space to thrive and the space to feel like I live here and I'm not going to be displaced by you people. And also,
I see the card, but I just have a quick question because I'm not from Wilton and I don't go up there that often. Are we trying to create like separate but equal? Or are we trying to create inclusion? Because I hear separate but equal. I hear I want to have Black business so Black people have somewhere to go, and the white people can go there, the Black people can go there.
No.
But is that what we're shooting for? I'm confused.
I don't think that's it at all. But I think if a Black person wants to own a business in Wilton Manors, they
Yeah.
should be allowed to.
Yeah, for
Shouldn't be
sure.
hurdles on top of
right.
hurdles. on top of hurdles.
That part,
sure.
it shouldn't be the barrier.
That's
Absolutely.
what happens quite often.
Absolutely.
I mean, unfortunately, that's very characteristic in a lot of communities that are predominantly white, is that it's, in business, they call it a culture fit, right? Is this a culture fit? If we're going to grant you this license, if we're going to do these things, and very often the people that decide the culture fit are not people that look like us.
Right.
And that's the bigger issue.
Not yet.
Well,
Not
the
yet.
fact that,
We have to
folks
keep
are
going.
concerned about any event
They wanna
happening
move on.
in Wilton, and we have a noise ordinance of 11 p.m. and that residents are waiting by the phone at 11:01 for particularly Black events.
That's right.
To be able to call to get them shut down in Wilton, right? Like that neighbors are complaining tells you that if the city is going to stand by a statement of diversity and inclusion, that means that you got to stand in the paint. and make that happen.
Yeah.
And be intentional and meaningful about making that happen in your city, and not just being like, well, we accept everybody. Accepting everybody is different than saying, let me open the door. Let me give you your first $2 that you need to make this happen. Let me make sure nobody comes to bother you because this is your space right here.
Agreed.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.